You replay conversations in your head long after they've ended. Small moments, things you said, things you didn't say. A simple interaction turns into something you analyze again and again, not because you want to, but because your mind won't let it go. And what's strange is, you're not even reacting to the moment anymore. You're reacting to a version of it your brain keeps rebuilding. So why does this happen? First, it's important to understand something simple. You're not broken for doing this. Your mind isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. Replaying past mistakes is often the brain's way of creating control in situations where it once felt powerless. When something doesn't go the way you expected, your brain doesn't like the uncertainty it leaves behind. So it goes back again and again, trying to find a version of events that feels more predictable. You might notice this happens most after emotional moments, a disagreement, an awkward conversation, a situation where you felt exposed. In those moments, your brain flags the experience as important, not because it was objectively big, but because it felt intense. And anything intense gets stored differently. Your mind starts asking quiet questions. What did I do wrong? What could I have said differently? What did they think of me? And even when you don't consciously ask these questions, your brain does. This is where overanalysis begins. But it's not really about finding answers. It's about reducing discomfort. Because uncertainty is one of the hardest things for the mind to sit with. So instead of accepting that the moment is over, your brain reopens it again and again, trying to close a loop that doesn't have a clear ending. This pattern often starts earlier than people realize. If you grew up in an environment where mistakes had consequences, where being wrong led to embarrassment, criticism, or rejection, your brain learned something important. It learned that mistakes are not safe. So now, as an adult, your mind tries to prevent that feeling from happening again by studying the past, not to punish you, but to prepare you. The problem is, the brain doesn't always know when to stop. It keeps searching for certainty in a situation that has already passed. And this is where it gets interesting, because the more you replay something, the less accurate it actually becomes. You're no longer remembering the moment. You're remembering your last interpretation of it. Each replay slightly changes the story, adds a detail, removes context, shifts tone, until what you're reacting to isn't reality anymore. It's a version shaped by emotion. And emotion is not always objective. Sometimes it's protective. Another reason this happens is tied to identity. You don't just experience events. You build a sense of self around them. So when something goes wrong, it doesn't just feel like a mistake. It feels like a reflection of who you are. And the brain doesn't like threats to identity. So it replays the moment, trying to separate the mistake from the self. Or sometimes confirming it. This is why a small moment can feel so heavy. Because it's not just about what happened. It's about what it might mean. Over time, this can turn into a habit, not a conscious one, but a mental loop your brain returns to automatically. A kind of psychological autopilot. You don't choose to replay things. It just starts happening, especially in quiet moments, at night, while you're alone, when there's nothing else demanding your attention. That's when your mind goes back, not because you're weak, but because your brain finally has space to process what it didn't fully understand earlier. And this is where many people get confused. They think they're overthinking because something is wrong with them. But in reality, they're overthinking because something felt unresolved. The brain doesn't like unfinished emotional experiences. It wants closure, clarity, completion. And when it doesn't get that externally, it tries to create it internally by replaying. But here's the part most people don't realize. Replaying isn't actually solving the problem. It just gives the illusion of progress. Because thinking feels like doing something, even when it's not moving you forward. So you stay in the loop, not because you want to, but because it feels like you haven't reached the right conclusion yet. And maybe that conclusion doesn't exist. Some moments don't come with perfect answers. Some conversations don't have clean endings. Some mistakes don't need to be fully understood to be left behind. But your brain wasn't built to accept that easily. It was built to protect you from repeating pain. And sometimes it overdoes that job. As you grow, this pattern can change. Not because the tendency disappears, but because your relationship with it shifts. You begin to notice it happening instead of being completely inside it. The same replay might still show up, but it doesn't feel as powerful as it once did, because you start to understand something deeper, that not every thought needs to be followed, not every memory needs to be analyzed, and not every mistake needs to define you. Replaying the past is not a flaw. It's a sign that your mind is trying to make sense of something that once felt uncertain. It's a way your brain looks for safety, even if it doesn't always find it. And maybe that's the point. Not to stop the thoughts completely, but to understand why they're there. Because once you understand that, they don't feel as overwhelming anymore.